Public Safety for the City of Providence. We're here to give you a briefing on yesterday's homicide outside of PCTA here in Providence. The Colonel will speak generally about the case, and then the Mayor's going to have a few words about overall security and his thoughts as well. This is an ongoing investigation. I'd like to acknowledge the Attorney General's office, Deputy Attorney General Jerry Coyne, who was both on the scene and here early morning. I'd like to acknowledge the Providence police officers that were both on that complex when the shots were fired, and the response from this police department was extraordinary. Unfortunately, we have a young person that died as a result of a senseless gunfire. We will get to the bottom of it. We'll hold everyone accountable that was involved. I have full faith and confidence in this police department that in the coming days, people that had anything to do with this crime will be held accountable. Let me introduce the Colonel of the Providence Police, Hugh Clemens, for a few general words about the investigation, and then we'll go to the Mayor thereafter. Colonel?
Thank you, Commissioner. And again, up top, certainly give my sympathy to the family, friends, the school district, and the entire community of Providence for this tragic, in every sense of the term, situation that occurred yesterday afternoon. Very tragic. And a truly innocent young man has his life taken from him. So again, shortly before 2 p.m., exactly 1:53 p.m., there appears to be a small disturbance outside of the PCTA. School resource officers who are assigned to Central and the PCTA are alerted and are converging on the scene. They see a disturbance. There are several people out front, several students, and later on there are several accounts that match up. But there's a slight disturbance. Two young men are walking together. One of them pulls out a firearm, introduces the firearm into this disturbance, fires one shot, strikes a 15-year-old student from Central once, and flees the scene. Some of the questions that remain from yesterday, shortly thereafter at 2:38, so a little more than a half hour later, a second shooting comes in at 40 Sprague Street. Providence police respond to 40 Sprague Street and began investigating that crime scene. Now again, let me just jump back to the initial shooting. As you can imagine, Providence police come over the air, and within minutes there were at least 50 Providence police officers on scene. Uniform, patrol, detectives, plainclothes, unmarked cars, culling witnesses, processing the crime scene, and combing the streets of that immediate area. And in a very short amount of time, they did some really, really good police work. The second shooting comes in at 40 Sprague Street, and we immediately realized that this may be an accidental shooting. He's reporting that he's been shot, and he describes a vehicle that was responsible for that shooting. We almost immediately realized this may not be the case, and later in our investigation we reveal, and we're confident that that was quite apparent accidental shooting by him as he's trying to flee the scene and elude the Providence police. So in his attempt to flee, it apparently appears that he accidentally shoots himself. We get called to that second scene. He is immediately taken to the hospital and being treated as well. We continue with the investigation, and shortly after 3 p.m., our 15-year-old victim is pronounced officially at the hospital. At 4 o'clock, as the Providence police are combing the streets in a very coordinated fashion of searching the scene, we now know, we're very confident we have the shooter at that point. Witnesses are starting to come together. We were looking for the firearm because we believe the firearm was in between the school and 40 Sprague Street. In a very coordinated fashion, we searched that area. with a line search, and we had uniform detectives, K-9 units, and we recovered the firearm in between those two locations at Westfield and Fuller. So we have the weapon with 2 spent shells, which is consistent with the 2 shots fired, one on the scene in front of the school, one the apparent accidental self-inflicted wound of the suspect. So, unanswered questions from yesterday, they are connected. Shooter is in custody. The gun has been seized. Witnesses have made an identification. The shooter will be charged criminally when he is released from the hospital later today. And I really want to thank them for the help, as always, the Rhode Island Attorney General's office, who stand with us on every major investigation that we do, and they will handle the arraignment later today.
Is the shooter a minor?
Hold on a second.
Yes.
So let me clarify a couple things. Thanks, Colonel. Our victim is William Parsons. He's 15. He's a student in Providence. We believe at this point that he is an unintended target. He had nothing to do with the disturbance out in front of PCTA. He was standing nearby, and we believe he was shot and killed and was not the target. We're investigating motive as to why the original disturbance occurred and the subsequent introduction of a handgun by our suspect, who is also a juvenile that we will not be identifying, and he is also a student in the Providence school system.
So just to clarify, when you said that 2 boys were walking down the street together when the whole altercation began, one of those 2 was not William Parsons?
Correct.
Okay. He was separate somewhere.
Correct.
Do you know who the intended victim was?
That's under investigation right now.
Any
Yep.
motive?
Not right now. This is going to take a little bit of time to pull everything together and determine who knew what and who would be responsible. So we have some work to do, and in the coming days we'll complete and determine everyone that may have been responsible for this dispute, and if there's additional criminal charges that they may face, we will ask the Attorney General to bring them.
So let me comment, and then we could take Q&As. So we had a terrible tragedy yesterday at PCTA involving some juveniles. There were kids. This is a senseless tragedy, and every parent's worst nightmare. We had a chance to spend some time last night with the family, and whenever something like this happens in the city, whenever something like this happens to anyone, it's really family that gets us through. So the entire Providence family, the entire school family, and the extended family comes together to support the family and all of the victims involved. So there's a lot of work that we need to do, not only on the police side and investigation side, but also with respect to the school community, the family, and the broader community. And so I know there are a number of coordinated efforts from the faith community, from youth groups, from the Institute for the Study and Practice of Nonviolence, and from our own school community as well. It's important that we give kids an opportunity to grieve, but also the support that they need to get through this very difficult, emotionally trying situation.